So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which time zone you are in. Very good to have you all with us. My name is Michael Claude, and I welcome you to this edition of Ask the Author, our series of 30-minute video webinars about one of our reports. And I'm here today with my colleagues Camille, Combe, and Philippe Crist, who are cordially invited to present themselves and turn on their cameras. Here they are, who are the authors of AI for Transport Authorities, our latest report. This report is the latest output from the ITF Mobility Innovation Hub, and it was made possible with support from the Korean Ministry of Land and Transport, and also with support from EIT Urban Mobility, which is associated with the European Commission. So very pleased that we can give you this report. Philippe and Camille will have 10 minutes to pitch their findings to you. You will have the opportunity to quiz them, to ask them questions. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to do this. Send in your questions. You can start right from the beginning. You don't have to wait until the end. Please don't use the chat. The chat is not good for submitting questions. Please use the Q&A. So I'm not going to say a lot about this topic because I have two of the world experts to talk about AI and transport. I will only say so much that if you're here to learn about how to use AI to make your public transport work faster or how to avoid self-driving cars crashing into each other, then you will be disappointed, because we will be talking about governance of AI for transport. How can transport authorities set the rules, set the framework so that AI is used, shall I say, intelligently in the transport sector? So if that's what you're looking for, then you're here in the right place. And I immediately hand over to Camille and Philippe for their presentation. And do send us your questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael, and welcome to all of you to this Ask the Author. As Michael has said, the focus of this report is not on AI in transport, but it's rather on how to help transport authorities determine when and how and where to use AI. And clearly, AI can do a lot that's good. Not only that was previously impossible, but maybe even things that we can do better than what we had before. And it's normal, therefore, for transport authorities to leverage this technology, or rather these technologies, to carry out their mandates. But at the same time, public authorities have unique missions and responsibilities, and these are to serve the public good in a trustworthy and transparent way. And so the key question when it comes to the use of AI by transport authorities is not what can AI do, but more in what way can AI do things better that we are expecting from this technology. The report here is something that we have built on a number of interviews, a number of case studies, and a number of discussions with AI experts in the field. And when we think about that question, not what can AI be used for, but rather to what purpose can AI be put? A repeated refrain from these interviews was, is AI the first best option? Is it the fifth best option? Or is it the 50th best option for those purposes? More succinctly, if we had to sum it up, just because AI can, people were asking us, should AI do? Now, the core of our messaging around this focuses on 5 key moments that transport authorities will face when deciding whether or not to use AI. Scoping the decision, undertaking risk assessment at all the key moments where it's important to do so, selecting an AI technology or not, deploying that technology, and evaluating its impact. When it comes to scoping the decision, authorities must establish the link between high-level mandates and roles to the kind of objectives that transport authorities are setting for themselves, to the ways in which public authorities typically intervene, and to the kinds of tasks that authorities must carry out to achieve those objectives, which then sets up, and only then, the discussion on the potential use of AI in support of those tasks. This chain of accountability is a critical element of public governance and helps build trust in public authority use of AI by transparently establishing the basis for its legitimate, targeted, and proportionate use. And when we talk about scoping, we've identified 5 principles that can be helpful to guide transport authority action. And the first is that AI must be used to serve public mandates, not simply for the sake of using AI. The second is that AI tools should be applied when they are necessary, proportionate to, and improve the delivery of specific tasks or objectives for which public authorities have a mandate. The third is to establish and maintain a clear chain of accountability linking higher order mandates to specific AI-enabled tasks to foster trust in governments. The fourth is to adopt an outcome-oriented perspective, shifting the focus from what can AI do to what outcome can AI improve. And the fifth is that authorities must adapt their internal oversight and governance mechanisms to accommodate for their use of AI. That's in the scoping, but AI has risks, and Camille is going to talk about this second portion, which is risk assessment.
Thank you very much, Philippe. And so, yes, the second stage is the establishment of a risk management framework. And it is a very important component to consider to ensure AI deployment and use by transport, but also other authorities do not lead to worse outcomes that when not using these technologies. And risk management strategy can improve trust in AI deployment, but by first addressing the risk of using or not using AI compared to other solutions, mitigating risks during the deployment and use of AI through risk mitigation measures. And finally, the evaluation of the emergence of new or also evolving risks stemming from the use of AI. And here at the risk management stage, we identify 6 guiding principles to consider. The first one is that safety should be embedded in the AI risk management framework and not treated as a compliance checkbox. Transport is a safety critical sector, and authorities in charge should ensure that AI contributes to the overall safety of the sector. It implies avoiding to deploy high-risk AI systems in safety critical function. Then public authorities should assess and identify potential harm, but also that could be caused by AI systems, but also mitigate them before these harms actually realize or before the AI system is deployed. Then risk management frameworks should be established to identify risk related to AI use, but also mitigate the risks following AI deployment, and finally, evaluate the emergence of new or evolving risk. Then the approach to risk should be multidimensional and nuanced. Risk can lead to physical, but also non-physical harm. They can be technical, they can be operational, legal, or technical. And a narrow focus on one of these dimensions may distort how public authorities assess risks and AI risks. So that's why public authorities should ask themselves if they considered all the dimensions of risk before deployment. Then risk and its perception will also and very likely evolve over time, and risk assessment should also account for the shifting risk tolerance, but also perception to ensure AI risks remains relevant. AI assessment of risks remains relevant. And finally, AI application that pose unacceptable risks should be avoided. And transport authorities should draw a clear line between what's tolerable and what's unacceptable when it comes to AI deployment. As Philippe was explaining, the next step in the AI, let's say, deployment pipeline is the selection of the solution. And once the risk management framework is established, public authorities need to determine if, when, and also under what conditions the use of AI suits their needs. And this selection stage happens before the implementation phase. So first, they should start by evaluating upstream risks to inform them under what circumstances their use of AI may proceed in line with their risk tolerance. And this stage should follow formal and very transparent protocols, and the results should also be transparent and documented and communicated. Then, before selecting an AI system, authorities should evaluate how AI performs compared to human. And here, AI capabilities frameworks, such as the one developed by the OECD, can provide authorities with information on how to assess the capabilities of an AI system. Then the efficiency of implementation will also likely depend on the readiness of the transport authorities to adopt AI. And here, AI readiness depends on several factors, such as the transport workers and decision makers' expertise, but also the update of procurement practices. And authorities for this authorities do not need to start from scratch. They can already build on existing efforts, on case studies, also on other lessons learned by peer organizations to identify practical use cases for adopting AI across the transport sector. Then pre-selected AI systems should be compared with also other AI alternatives, but with also non-AI alternatives. And using different criteria, including obviously the risks assessment, but also the organizational readiness to use the solution, and also the existence of evidence demonstrating the ability of the pre-selected solution to address a specific problem can be used to assess and make a decision over an AI system. And finally, the AI system selection aims to ensure that when selecting an AI system, public authorities select the most suitable system for a specific use case. And here we have identified 6 guiding principles to ensure that when selecting an AI system, public authorities take the right decision. The first principle is that the deployment and use of AI should not result in outcomes that are worse than when not using AI. Secondly, when it comes to risks, transport authorities should avoid using AI system where risks are unacceptable or cannot be mitigated. Then AI should only be used when it's demonstrably the best solution for a problem at hand. Its use should be justified against non-AI solutions. And if an AI solution does not deliver meaningful benefits over alternative solutions, authorities should refrain from implementing it. Then before adopting AI solutions, transport authorities must ensure that they have the internal capacity to choose, deploy, and monitor such systems responsibly. They should also match their selection of an AI technology to the specific task under consideration. And please note here that AI is not fit for every task. And finally, transport authorities should clearly document both the rationale for adopting AI and the process by which a particular system was selected, including an assessment of alternative solutions. And here, decision over AI use should be transparent and justified.
Once AI systems are deployed, public authorities have a responsibility to oversee their use. They must ensure that new and emerging risks are mitigated, but they must also think about the ways in which AI system outputs are integrated into decision-making processes. Is the AI an input to a human decision? Are AI and humans working together on decisions? Is the human overseeing AI decisions, or is the AI making a decision on its own? These are important considerations to address. And finally, they must ensure that the intended performance of the AI technology is delivered even if the AI technology updates itself as a learning response to its environment. And here, again, we have a number of principles. The first is that the deployment and oversight of AI systems must comply with the regulatory and legal requirements. Public authorities must ensure ongoing monitoring to detect and counter risks linked to unintended or faulty performance. This is especially important for self-learning AI models where these risks may be accentuated. Risk mitigation must be proportionate to the nature and level of risk so as not to stifle the potential benefits that can be derived from AI deployment. There is a need to retain meaningful human involvement and recourse in decision-making, employing or involving AI. Authorities must clearly and accessibly communicate AI system behavior and risk mitigation strategies to the public, to users, and to developers to build trust and accountability in their use of AI. And finally, authorities should ensure their accountability throughout the AI lifecycle and establish effective AI governance themselves via AI stewardship roles within the public authority. Deploying and forgetting AI systems is not an option for AI adoption. Authorities must ensure targeted performance-based evaluation, especially as experience with AI systems is relatively scarce at this time. And this performance-based evaluation starts by assessing actual AI performance versus intended outcomes of AI use. But given the rapid evolution of AI and the multiplicity of use cases to which it is put, post-deployment evaluation should include an assessment of whether a deployed AI technology is still fit for purpose. And rollback to a non-AI or another AI selection should always remain an option. And here, AI use should be regularly and systematically evaluated to ensure its deployment leads to demonstrably beneficial outcomes that are aligned with the public interest and the intent of the public authority. AI evaluation results, criteria, and decisions made on the basis of these should be publicly communicated to build accountability and trust. And finally, public authorities should retain the possibility to roll back their use of AI if the deployed AI system is no longer effective, appropriate, or aligned with public policy objectives and values. So this is a distillation of the main parts of the report. We have 6 top-level key recommendations that we're going to quickly finish up with right here.
Thank you, Philippe. So the first one, and I think I clicked, but it should be all right, is to try small, try safe, but try. And here we saw in the report that AI is already all around us, and authorities shouldn't wait for the perfect conditions to start using it. And the key is to begin with small, controlled, but also low-risk experiments. And that means choosing clear use cases where AI can add value, testing them safely, but also, as Philippe said, keeping a close eye on performance and deciding whether to improve, scale up, or even stop the deployment. The second one is to establish governance and update the governance practices specific to AI. And when it comes to AI use, transport authorities need to make sure that their governance practices line up with the public core values. And updating governance for the AI age matters because transport system holds a significant social but also economic importance for societies. Then they should also balance AI risks and benefit with risk assessment and mitigation. And here, transport sector, again, is a very safety critical one, and risk management has to happen at 2 levels. The first one is upstream with upstream risk management through careful assessment to help authorities decide if, how, and under what conditions AI can be used safely, but also downstream risk management through risk mitigation measures by putting in place resources to manage and limit any undesired AI outcomes once systems are in use.
I said at the outset that there's a lot
I
to be
need to remind you to hurry up a little bit because we do want to leave time for our guests to ask their questions.
We are finishing up right now.
Super.
So sometimes AI is a great option, but in some cases it may not be the right choice. And that's something that we must keep in mind when we're assessing the use of AI. When an AI technology or solution is selected, we have to align the type of AI with the specific task that's been identified. Using a generative AI large language model to assess the safety of a junction is probably not the right application of that technology to the task. And finally, again, because our experience with AI is growing over time as we use it, but also because the AI systems themselves may update themselves, it's important to both track their performance and tweak their performance where necessary as these AIs are being deployed and as they're running through their life cycle. So with that, we'll finish and point out that these all of these points and the rest of the text is available on the website where our report resides here in this QR code, and we look forward to the conversation and the questions right now.
Super. Thank you so very much. This was very, very interesting. I think it's kind of very dense and high level, but it's really important that we get this right if we introduce AI for all kinds of applications. And I invite our participants to send us their questions. Please do use the Q&A channel and do not use the chat, otherwise I get confused. And I have a first question from Yostreng, who asks about the exchange of experience. His question is more about the application of AI, but I think we can take it to a kind of the regulatory level. He asks, could you share your view on if and how AI can support exchange of experience between cities and under which conditions?
So I think if you're talking about experiences that are put in place by different cities on the use of AI, that doesn't necessarily require AI, but it is an important thing to put into place. And there are, of course, networks that allow that facilitate that. If you're talking about using AI itself as a way of gathering experience with other cities, with other levels of government's use of AI. There are, of course, classic uses of AI right now that help you distill from a large amount of information, some of it that's already pre-digested, some of it that's available publicly on the internet, or some of it that's available in repositories of information, to make an assessment and a summary of that. So clearly, large language models might be an interesting use there. But I will point out that large language models are designed to create plausible answers to the prompts that you're going to put to them. So if you're looking for a general summary, perhaps yes, but if you're looking for accurate information, then perhaps that's not the right AI technology to use. So again, the question is, what is the task that you want to accomplish? If that task is to gain knowledge from what other cities are doing, be clear about the kind of AI technology you would deploy to gather that information, distill it, and create knowledge from it. And I would again come back to my first point, maybe AI is not the right solution or technology for that.
Thanks very much. A question comes in from Alexandre Santa Cruz, who asks about whether there are actually practical examples of where AI can fail and mislead a transport authority. And maybe we can broaden that question a little bit and ask, are there examples of where transport authorities should definitely not use AI, and examples where it's obvious that they should?
Do you want to do not, and I'll do the should?
You can start with the should.
You do the not. Let's start with the negative.
No, but so I think I'll take the example that Philippe just used on the use of LLMs and more generally generative AI for specific tasks. I think that some tasks that public authorities are doing require very accurate information to take the best possible decision for their constituents, for the citizens. So I think in these contexts, and I will maybe not give specific examples, but for either safety critical applications, we can use traffic. I know Alex worked on this on road safety, so I mean it could be one, but also on any decision that would require an accurate information. Public authorities should refrain from using Gen AI for these specific tasks, especially if they are safety critical.
I'll just point out that we see some examples of that. For example, there have been some experimentations trying to create safety assurance statements. These are statements of the safety of a specific technology, of procedure, or process in transport, and using not a large foundational model, LLM or generative AI model, to give that answer, but to use a model that's using just a specific pool of information of safety related documents. And so it's not the internet, it's not all the knowledge in the world, it's safety knowledge related to those technologies. And even in those instances, it was found that the safety assurance statements that were generated by the LLM contained factual errors or imprecisions, even though they were focusing just on safety-related information. So again, if accuracy is your goal, then really be careful as to the technology that you're using. Where accuracy can be delivered, in the case of using AI, a lot of transport authorities, especially those that have complex rail-based systems, are using machine learning video and machine learning systems compiled to create a safety assessment and predictive maintenance schedules for their networks. And that is a good example of an AI deployment where you can both train the AI model, where you can check and validate its accuracy. And once that validation is consistent and the accuracy is consistently delivered, then you can use it as part of your day-to-day business. So checking and creating a maintenance schedule for different kinds of network infrastructure elements using AI is clearly a good use case right now.
Thank you very much. One obvious question I think that poses itself is whether transport authorities have the the skills to actually do this. So is the capacity, is the capability, is the knowledge there? And if not, what needs to be done there?
So hard and excellent question at the same time. I think here we need to distinguish two things. So first, when you are going to work with AI, and when you are going to work on AI. And here, the different skill sets that are at stake are very different. For the first one, so working with AI, it will require a more, let's say, AI literacy, so a basic understanding of how AI systems works, what they use as an input, how you can be critical with the output also. And here I can also refer to the EU AI Act that also put in place this AI literacy principle. Then when you go forward and talk more about AI proficiency, so the ability to work on AI, it requires more technical skills. And here, one thing that we can mention is that the transport sector is also going to compete against these skills against other sectors. So it's here the issue and the challenge for the transport sector is not only to acquire these skills, but it's also how to acquire these skills when the transport sector is facing the banking sector, the computing sector, for these very technical, also transversal skills.
When you were talking to the transport sector, you mentioned that at the beginning that you interviewed quite a lot of actors. What did you hear from them about the use of AI? How do they see the things that you've been talking about? What is the feedback?
I mean, Camille, a lot of what we were hearing was both, well, two levels of AI use. So people were using AI, but in, let's call it, what might be fairly low risk applications. And clearly a lot of AI use is not going to involve a lot of risk. And so, but they were wondering sometimes, where is that boundary? You know, if I use AI for this and then I use it for something else, am I going into a risky area? I don't know how to evaluate that. So clearly they're saying it would be nice to have a framework in which we can establish, you know, at what point the use of AI, our use of AI becomes risky, and then what does that trigger? So that was one thing we heard. The other thing from some, what we heard from others was an unease and a dissatisfaction with taking on, especially LLMs and generative AI, as a solution for everything, when the focus wasn't on what the public agency mission was, what the Transport Authority mission was, but simply on using that technology. And in some cases, there was additional work that the deployment of the AI imposed in the work stream for public authorities, which, as you know, are strapped for expertise, time, and resources. So there's a dissatisfaction with the poor deployment of some of these AI systems because it hadn't been thought through, and it was actually increasing some of the workload requirements and decreasing the quality of the workload outputs.
And I'll just add that we also had very unexpected responses, especially from the private sector, regarding the use of AI for their operations. And I think one discussion that struck me the most was people from the private sector also talking about their role as AI slashers and their role to, when they think about implementing AI, their role was to actually cut the AI project because it was actually AI was not the best solution to perform the job, as Philippe said. So I think we see also more and more from public, but also private stakeholders, this reflection, this thinking around, is AI the best solution for my problem, and not what is the question, and AI is the answer to any question that I may ask myself.
And to use a question that has come in from Salvador Saavedra, he asks, in which sector of transport you found the most open-mindedness for AI? Is there, within the transport sector, are there areas where AI is more dominant than in others? Is there?
So to recall again that our focus was on the use of AI by transport authorities, by government authorities. And so our focus wasn't looking specifically at the deployment of AI in transport. But what we can say, what we can say from having worked on this field for a while now, is that yes, there are sectors that are more open to the rapid uptake of AI. Clearly, all of those agents, those entities, those companies that are in digitally enabled services, platform-based services, use AI, exploit AI, and as a core part of their functioning work streams. But like I said, there are a number of authorities that, again, facing daunting tasks of having to deliver high-quality infrastructure over the lifespan that might go over 50, 60, 70 years, and reduce budgets, are trying to exploit AI to improve the delivery of safe infrastructure, even though they might not be able to take on more staff and bring in more resources. So it's two things: the digitally enabled and those that are facing some really hard pressing problems, and where they can use AI to ensure they deliver quality public outputs.
Thanks. I look at the clock, and it's past 3 o'clock, but I think we can take one or two more questions if anyone of you wants to submit one. Here's one from Benjamin Loret, who asked about transport demand forecasts. Okay, but this is more about the application of AI. I'll ask it anyway. Have you come across transport demand forecasts generated by AI, and how do they compare to demands forecasts generated by classic tools?
So
I don't know whether you can answer that actually, but
no, absolutely. That is a clear use case for AI by transport authorities. They have to understand where is the world going and what do we need to do in order to accommodate how the world is changing, and trying to understand the potential future evolution of transport demand is key. And we have a long tradition of using models, of using forecasts, of using agent-based simulation to do all that. And AI can be part of that, but only part of it. One of the things that came up consistently was that AI-based outcomes still require expert-based validation and interpretation. And so while, yes, you can use AI to do demand forecasts, you need experts who can evaluate on what basis was that forecast made. What was the data that was used to make that forecast? Do we feel confident that that data is unbiased and represents, the society in which we're operating and that we're concerned about that might generate this transport demand? So those things came up a lot, that people were saying, look, AI can help us do some technical tasks, but they cannot help us make policy, and they cannot help us interpret those tasks without human expertise. So you asked if there's specific examples of that. We can take that offline. There are some, but I think the recurring theme is here it's a coupled AI-human task. AI providing input, humans providing interpretation.
And just to add to that, coming back to the skill discussion, here it also shows that it's not just about AI skills. It's also about having the expertise. And we also talk with people dealing with infrastructure maintenance and talking how they were using AI to improve like predictive maintenance of infrastructure. And they told us that it was challenging also for them because the experts who are now not working with AI had to upskill themselves to be more of like AI experts. So it's not just about putting an AI and the old expert will work with its system. It's also about like this, thinking about this upskilling. And as Philippe said, working on this computer, whatever, machine AI system, human collaboration.
Thank you very much. So we arrived at the end of our Ask the Author. We've learned that it's not just grabbing the next large language model and throwing it at your transport issue. It's about setting the frameworks. It's about upskilling and learning how to deal with these things to achieve outcomes that governments have a mandate for. I think that's a very, very reassuring conclusion, because this is all about trust in the end. I think it's about trust and confidence that citizens can have in the services that they receive from the transport sector. I would like to thank...
One thing you can trust is, like, for all International Transport Forum outputs, this was produced with human intelligence, not with AI.
And so is this webinar. Thank you both very, very much for your time and for preparing this. If you want to reach out to Camille and Philippe with your questions or additional information or ideas for collaboration, whatever, please do so. I'll send you an email after this is over, and that will contain also a link to the video on YouTube that you can share with others, colleagues who may have missed this, or friends, or post it on LinkedIn or wherever you want. And we hope to see you at the next Ask the Author, which is not far down the road. And if you follow our channels, then you will hear about this. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much for being here, and have a very good day. Bye-bye.